ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second session of the day at the 7th edition of RenewX. The session being on economic and environmental benefits of AgriPV in India. May I please invite on the stage our moderator, Shri Anil Kumar Bellariji from IGF, GIZ. May I please invite Ms. Sonali Bhaduri, Program Associate, CEEW, Mr. Vivek Saraf, CEO, Sunseed, Mr. Parveen Arora, Partner and Practice Lead, Energy and Infrastructure, BTG Legal, Mr. Surindar Ahuja, Founder, SunMaster, Ms. Suruchi, Principal Associate, BTG Legal, and Mr. Balaji BL, Founder, CEO, and CTO. Thank you.
Good morning and good afternoon. We are almost close to 12 noon. May I request the people who are seated there to come and occupy the seats in the front row? I think that would be useful for the speakers. Please come to the front rows. Please come and occupy. Yeah, thank you, Amit, for that short round of introduction. We will try and keep the entire session to about an hour. This is an emerging topic. I know some of in the audience are also from the field of agriculture. You know that besides the energy security topic, there is also the agriculture security, the food security, which is going to play a very dominant role for any country to grow. So with that background in perspective, what we have done here is we have assembled a very distinguished panel of speakers, practitioners, and developers who have hands-on experience in this very innovative topic of agri-photovoltaics. This topic is picking up. There are about 20-25 odd pilots which are operational in the country. You could visit our website www.energyforum.in where you will find details on the projects that are operational. So coming to the distinguished panel, they represent the policy, the regulatory, the technology, the innovation, and the other aspects of R&D. And also we have two women speakers in line with our philosophy of a feministic policy of development. We as a German project, we try and promote women entrepreneurs, women policymakers, women scientists to really grow in large numbers. So that's the reason why we have these women speakers. With this, I would like to start and call upon our first speaker, Ms. Sonali Bhaduri, who is associated with a very well-known think tank called Council for Energy and Environment based out of Delhi. Sonali, the floor is
yours. Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Sonali Bhaduri. I represent the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And I will be talking about the techno-economic feasibility of 5 agro-PV systems. Taking an example of Rajasthan over here, however, the methodology can be applied to anyone. And when I say 5 agro-PV systems, the thing that we are wearing here is the PV side of the systems. So first talking about CEEW, we are one of Asia's leading policy-based think tank. We use data integrated analysis and strategic outreach to impact sustainable development at scale. The major sectors that we work on is the transformation sectors, where we are looking at different kinds of transformations like the low carbon economy, energy transitions that we are talking about here, power markets, industrial sustainability, sustainable livelihood. We also focus on areas which talk about increasing the quality of life, working on like clean air, sustainable water, food systems, cooling and mobility. Now, for making these transformations and increasing the quality of life, we work through them by using certain enablers. Those enablers are the sustainable finance system, technology, circular economy, resilience, etc. We also have 4 different special initiatives, one being the Center for Energy Finance, Powering Livelihood, Emerging Economies, and the UP State Office. So coming to our topic, first I would like to start with keeping India as the context. India is growing, I mean, in terms of the number of people, the population is growing, and it is expected to increase by 4x by 2050. Sorry. Yes. Due to this increase in population, you would also have increase in the food demand as well as the energy demand. However, the land that we have is limited and restricted. These are just some numbers that I've put in here in terms of the land requirement to meet your net zero targets. This a limited source of land, like here I've also talked about wasteland, which is very commonly talked in the solar industry. There are different categories of wasteland, and just taking 6 categories which are usable wasteland which can be used for PV installation. This is the number that we are presenting here. But we have to understand that this wasteland is not actually waste. There are other competing uses of these wasteland, like for roads, for infrastructure, for other industries. Also, there is an increasing research on converting these wasteland into cultivable lands. So, by the context of increasing in the energy demand and the food demand and having limited wasteland, it is very imperative that we have to move to sustainable methods of energy transition, and we have to optimize or better optimize the use of the land. AgriPV gives a very efficient solution where you can use the same land for agriculture as well as PV. This was a recent study which showed that the highest solar PV potential can be found in agricultural lands. However, we do know that a lot of livelihood depends on these agricultural lands, also the wasteland. And thus, we have seen, especially in, these are just 2 news articles, especially in some international countries, we have seen that there is a lot of resistance, even in India via the PM Kusum scheme, a lot of resistance coming from the rural population in converting, or concerns of converting their agricultural land into PV parks, if I may say. The objective of this presentation here is just to show a techno-economic feasibility to bring context of different agro-PV systems, keeping Rajasthan as the state, and Rajasthan is just an example state over here. These are certain assumptions that we had put for our study. The amount of land requirement for 1 megawatt project, the land in this study has been constant, so the numbers that I will show is all for 1 hectare of land. A COF was considered via simulation by taking the weather data. We have considered a particular bifacial gain. The cost of cultivation was taken under a particular category, which is category A. And also we have talked about 2 different business models. One is the farmer-owned model, and the other is the developer-owned model. And we have considered or assumed a subsidy for the farmer-owned model as 60%. This is taken from the PM Kusum scheme. However, this is an assumption right now, and for the developer-based model, the subsidy is 0%. And our approach was to first have rigorous stakeholder consultation with different state officials, as we are heavily involved in implementation of various state policies, talking with farmers, developers, and policymakers. We also did site visits and extensive secondary research. And finally, the methodology that we are using for the techno-economic feasibility analysis is the discounted cash flow model. So these are the 4 APV designs that we are going to talk about today. One is the monofacial standard design, typical things which we see in the utility park. The second one is an elevated monofacial design. The third one is a bifacial design, again at an elevated height. Fourth one being vertically mounted bifacial design. And fifth one is a solar tree. So these are one, the LCOE numbers and the net income that a farmer can get. You can see that for all the LCOE numbers, for all the different technologies, for both the business models, they all come below the 5.5 tariff rate, which is currently the rate for the rate of Rajasthan. The snapshot of the tariff order is given there for agricultural consumers. So ideally, all of this do make sense apart from the solar tree developer-based business model for specifically for the state of Rajasthan. However, I would like just a note here to look at the comparative results rather than the absolute numbers. In terms of the net income a farmer can own by either leasing their land to the developer or owning the APV plant. Of course, if they own the APV plant, they have to make a very high initial investment, thus also have high returns. But comparatively, when we see both the business model, both bifacial, vertically mounted design and the solar tree give the highest net income for the farmers compared to other technologies that we have considered here. Now, there are pros and cons to the APV system. In pros, we have increased generation because of bifacial gains and also other factors. We get double the revenue via the food and the PV industry. You increase the land productivity in certain cases, increase resilience, and there are also a lot of environmental benefits. You're reducing air pollution, saving water, etc. However, we have to understand that there are a lot of cons also right now, like the high initial cost. You need special trainings for the farmers. You need to do crop management. You have to understand that not all crops can be grown under these PV plants. So what kind of crops can be used for having high yields? There is an immense need of regulation and policy measure. That's what we are working on for having APV on scale. Right now, there are no guidelines as of for India. There also needs to be a community acceptance. There's a lot of awareness programs needs to come in. And finally, one of the major concerns that we see from the state departments is a food security concern, especially when you have the agricultural side of it involved. They would always push back talking about food security. So these are our few recommendations that we have come up with. First, and the first foremost recommendation is to define agrovoltaics. What is really agrovoltaics in Indian context? What is the percentage of yield reduction that we are okay with, and we still define it as agrovoltaics? So a clear definition is immensely required. You need to ensure the ownership clarity of that land, whether it's a farmer's land, whether it's a developer's land, and it links to the third category, the third recommendation that's written is that add a agrovoltaic land category. So if it's an agrovoltaic land, whether it's going to be used for agrovoltaic projects forever or it's going to be returned to the farmer and it's going to be an agricultural land after 25, 30 years, that clarity should be there. You need innovative tenders for APV project. You can't just copy paste your solar tenders. You need to have innovative design to consider or to have in mind the agriculture part of it. Then, of course, we need AgriPV specific financing products, especially at the initial few years to give a push, like viable gap funding can be there. You need to ensure legal certainty for the farmers. Otherwise, thus we are seeing a lot of pushback. You have to ensure their rights to the agricultural land, whether they will be able to practice their agricultural activities that they have been doing for decades. So there needs to be a very clear legal certainty for the farmers in this kind of projects. We of course need a multi-ministerial committee for coordination, because here a lot of sectors come together. We have a PV sector, we have agri sector, we have water sector, food. So all of these come together, and then we have an agro-PV sector. So all these ministers should be involved, and we need to have clear coordination between them. We need to increase awareness, promote these kind of PV project, and again this comes with doing campaigns, doing awareness programs with the farmers to make them aware, or the gram panchayat to make them aware of these kind of projects. We need to set up a national research program. I think there's research also still lacking in this domain, so we need to have more research on, going back to the first point, on defining APV. And finally, a skill development program, because as I said, crop management is going to be essential. A person who is going to be in the APV field, they need to know about PV as well as agriculture. So a skill development program specific to agro-PV is also going to be instrumental. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali, for that presentation. We will have the question answer at the end of the panel presentations. So now I would request Mr. Vivek Saraf, CEO of Sunseed. I would request my speaker colleagues to restrict to 10 minutes. The clock is over there. Thank
you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Anilji. So I'm Vivek Saraf, the CEO of Sunseed. We specialize in agrivoltaic solutions. Recently, we have commissioned the APV project in partnership with GIZ, and we've created a video for that project. So we're going to start off by showing that video, and then we can take some questions after that. So I'll try to keep mine short and make up for the lost time, I guess. Okay.
The rapid development of large-scale solar projects has become one of the major societal successes of our time. However, future adoption could be limited by shortage of suitable land as solar generation starts to compete with food production. To help resolve this conflict, Sunseed and Kotoky Energy, in partnership with German Development Cooperation, and in collaboration with local farmers, have set up an agrivoltaics facility where solar generation is co-located with crop cultivation on the same piece of land. This 1.4 megawatts agrivoltaics farm on 5 acres of land is part of a bigger solar project located in the Marathwada region of Maharashtra in western India. The highlight of the project is the 1.5 acre, 4 meters elevated system integrated with a shade net house growing trellising vegetables, capsicum, cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, and beetle leaves, and shade-loving flowers, roses, hibiscus, chrysanthemums, and tuberose. All these crops are also being grown in an open area as a control environment. The innovative mounting structure uses Sunseed's tensioned cable systems, having the same robust design concepts as in suspension bridges. The easy-to-install and lightweight system is about 25% less expensive than conventional structures. The structures also incorporate several features that enable advanced agriculture, mechanisms for retractable shade nets, trellises for crop support, and foggers for temperature control. The shade nets can be retracted in just a few minutes based on the radiation intensity and temperature profile, which are monitored via weather stations to provide the optimal growing environment. In addition to the shade house, systems with lower elevations of 1.25 meters and 1.75 meters have also been installed, which incur only marginally higher capital costs than conventional solar projects. These sections will be growing turmeric, marigolds, melons, leafy greens, and Ayurvedic herbs. Initially, the land at the site was hard, clayey, lumpy, and full of weeds, making it tough to prepare the land below the panels. Many tractors with different farm implements were used to prepare the soil and create granular beds ready for cultivation. Apart from helping enhance crop yields, the shade house is designed to increase power generation as well. The higher albedo of the system, due to the highly reflective shade nets and mulches, along with the higher elevation and greater distance between rows of panels, is expected to double the bifacial gain. Separately, the cooling of the panels due to the evapotranspiration is expected to increase panel efficiency during the dry months. In a water-stressed region, it was imperative to have an efficient irrigation strategy. Water is being pumped from a well via a solar pump that connects to a drip irrigation network, which is triggered based on soil moisture sensors installed in each crop section. The reduced evapotranspiration due to the shade is expected to result in additional savings of 30 to 40%. Rainwater will be harvested via a drainage network aided by trenches below panel edges and gradation of the land such that the water flows to the natural drains at the periphery where it gets stored via a check dam. The solar panels are being cleaned via automatic cleaning robots, which are shifted from one row to another via an elevated walkway and supplemented by occasional water cleaning. The project is set up with IoT-based instrumentation to enable extensive R&D. This includes development of photosynthesis response curves and measurement of temperature profiles for simulating crops' yields, and accurate bifacial gain analysis using spectroradiometers and albedometers. The research will help develop crop-specific technologies to create commercially viable and bankable projects. Agrivoltaics can have a profound impact creating integrated, sustainable, and climate-resilient food-water energy systems. Agrivoltaics can increase crop and energy yields while reducing the use of land and water, helping form a win-win partnership between solar developers and farmers. Come, join us in this journey as we discover new facets of the fascinating world of agrivoltaics.
So I'd just like to add a couple of points. Yes, the presentation is there. So we'll just stick to this slide only. So in AgriPV, it's very important because there are extra costs, right? There are upfront capital costs associated with the project. So it's very important that the project is designed scientifically, and this is a six-pronged approach that we've created and tried to implement this in this project, the video of which you just saw. And obviously, as you move along, these approaches will get refined with research done by us and men from agri-universities and many other developers. So this is a start, and I'm sure everyone's going to help improve this. Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivek, for that wonderful and short presentation. What I would rather recommend is that we will have short presentations and allow time for question and answers and also discussions with our speakers. The next set of speakers are Mr. Parveen Arora and Ms. Suruchi Kotoky from BTG Legal. They are going to talk about the land-related issues in different states. They have done some very interesting work from the legal perspective. I mean, it's not easy that you go and put up a plant anywhere you want. I mean, over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you remember one of the Superman movie, they said land cannot be reproduced. Everything can be reproduced, but land cannot be reproduced. India having two main targets, that we want to become advanced developed country by 2047, and we want to achieve by net zero by 2070. Both have to go in parallel, and both are challenging each other. So we need to have more and more projects. We need more and more land to serve the ever-increasing population and to overcome the power poverty. If I'm not sure whether everyone is aware or not, we are very poor in power consumption. The USA consumes 1387 kilowatt per hour per capita consumption. China 671. World average is 350, whereas we consume only 107. This has to be increased. So to make both the challenges, that development as well as to address this issue of net zero, we need more and more RE projects. Now if you come to RE, wind turbines take lesser land, which is around 2.5 acres land per megawatt. But that is very logistically challenging. Nuclear power has its own challenges. Now remains only solar power. In solar also, like, we cannot give more and more land in abundance because it has its own limitations. Then comes this AgriPV, which can plug this gap, which can actually, AgriPV, we believe that AgriPV, if taken with the right technologies, right policies, it can plug the gap of land, and it can give extra income to farmers, as well as it can produce more electricity to achieve this net zero. We have done this study of legal and policies because there is no policy at this moment in India on AgriPV special policy. So we have done study, and I'll request Suruchi to walk you through on legal and policy aspect of AgriPV.
Thank you, sir. So, as rightly said, AgriPV seeks to harmonize two major sectors, that is agriculture and renewable, and this comes as a big boon. Now, with 300 days of sunshine and 60% of land under farming, AgriPV in India stands a great chance of emerging as a great leader in this sphere. So we must capitalize and we must work on this. Now, coming to law, there is no policy-wise expressly regulated law currently. So the current laws are applicable, which regulates AgriPV are those state-specific solar policies, which have to be read with Electricity Act and rules and regulations framed under. Now, all these solar policies and all these acts have different nodal agencies like MEDA, CREDL in Karnataka, and these kind of require various approvals which are mainly in line with solar power project setup. So these again are become applicable for our AgriPV currently because of no express regulations in this front as of now. But encouraging steps are definitely being initiated, like single window clearance system is already set up in Maharashtra by MEDA, where but that's again for renewable energy, but you can also get permissions now much quicker. Then a lot of R&D initiatives being taken. For example, in IIT Delhi came up with high efficiency shadowless auto-rotating solar tower system, which will tackle issues relating to shadows and other efficiency issues. Then also the Maharashtra policies recognizes farmland by self-help group and by farmers producer organizations, where you can set up solar panels subject to setting it up above 4 meters above the ground. So this is also recognized as per the current unconventional energy policy in Maharashtra. You also have the PM Kusum Component A and MNRE taking interest also in this sphere. Now, coming to land legislation governing change of land use, so the current laws for conversion of land from agriculture to non-agricultural land requires intimation to the Tehsildar and collector in Maharashtra, while it is a deemed conversion in Karnataka. Now, although we say it is a deemed conversion, it is not that you have to sit quiet and you don't have to do things. It doesn't work out. You need to keep your papers and documents and your ownership, all of these in place, because later in case you want to sell off the plant or you want to, if there's an investor selling in, and we have seen this in practical experience also, there are a lot of hassles. So you need to pay your NA taxes on time. All of that needs to be incorporated into your checklist. Also, when there's collector permission is required when you convert an NA land into another NA land for a different purpose, or from agriculture to NA for other than bona fide industrial use. And in case you don't do, then there is a penalty. Again, legislations are silent on coexistence of both agricultural land plus non-agricultural activities on the same land. So, but we understand that when agriculture activity continues on the land for AgriPV project, the land use is not changed because agriculture is being carried out and only additional solar power activity is being additionally conducted in the same piece of parcel. Now, while the farmer may not be required to pay a conversion fee for conversion of land status, an intimation to the relevant authority, that is collector in Maharashtra or the deputy commissioner for Karnataka, may suffice. We did have a discussion with these nodal agency, which is MEDA and CREDL, and although they have not provided any clarification, but they have suggested that the coexistence should not pose a problem. But as a good measure, we always suggest that you should write a letter to these nodal agencies before setting up a plant so that your risk is mitigated. Now, coming to potential barriers as per our views. There are a lot of, there may be officials who may have differing views regarding the legal implementation, which will lead to confusion and uncertainty. So you need to have a specific earmarked policies, as also mentioned by my earlier co-speakers in this panel. Plus, another issue that comes is the most Indian conventional crops require full sunlight, which would be limited by the erection of solar panels over the crop. So your major crops like rice, wheat, we need to find a solution on how we can get this done by AgriPV as well. Then overall project cost again may be high due to increased installation height of solar panels, maintenance costs, cleaning. There are options like robotic cleanings by Ecopia, but again that comes with a cost. So you need to also take into consideration the cost aspect as well. Animal grazing again is a safety concern. There is a risk of electrocution, so that needs to be taken care. Most importantly, land holds sentimental values for farmers. Here, your farmers are the deal breakers and deal makers. So you need to have extensive awareness and community participation to make this project a success. Lastly, the technical feasibility of module cleaning, availability of groundwater, elevation of solar panel must be researched and tested. As lawyers, we have proposed 10 steps that needs to be initiated in this field. First, AgriPV should be considered as an allied activity. There should be separate classification and specific regulated policies in this sphere. Secondly, ownership should lie with farmers like rooftop solar power generation and not with solar power producer to make this a project a success. Thirdly, land legislation must provide for mixed use of agriculture and non-agriculture land. Fourthly, single window clearance, which is again already set up in Meda as well as in Karnataka, but you need it locally also through banks and post offices to make it available to the farmers to get access. So that also needs to be done, and of course with one nodal agency and not having multiple agencies. Then there should be prefixed progressive tariff. In Kusum scheme, the tariff went high as 3.14 rupees, which makes the project unbankable. So this also needs to be kept in mind. Then you need to have extension of credit facilities, fiscal incentives, and concession. Now under law, banks are not allowed to seize land which is agriculture in nature. So what they do instead to dissuade is that they impose a lot of terms like loans, interest are high, the terms are more, the foreclosure options are less. So that also needs to be taken care when this project has been implemented. Another helpful thing which can work is that if you have a mandatory purchase obligations for taking power from AgriPV, that will also completely boost this energy sector. As I mentioned, MNR is actively working on a policy, and we understand that will provide an option for agreements with farmers, and we hope that it's flexible and also takes concern of both the stakeholders. Lastly, there has to be an awareness and knowledge sharing session with farmers, as land holds sentimental values and farmers are the deal maker and breaker in this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Suruchi, for that presentation. Now I would request Mr. Surindar Ahuja, founder of SunMaster, to make the presentation on the pilot that he has implemented. Yeah.
Good afternoon, friends. I am Surindar Ahuja from SunMaster. And let's start with the journey of Agrivoltaics, which we start 2 years back. So farmland is equivalent to photovoltaics plus food crop. That means effective utilization of land, electrifying your crops, farming under the canopy of solar panels. Now we developed 2 farms. One is in the year 2021 and one is just we are in the phase of developing, and it's already in the energizing, commission is already done, and energizing phase from the DISCOM. The first farm we developed, that is 2.5 megawatt. The solar modules we used over there is sun power. Inverter is from Fronis Eco. because it's IP67 inverter. The structure we use hot dip galvanized, and the height of the structure we keep is 4.3 meter. And we start the construction of that plant in the month of November, and we energize this by March 2021. The completion time is approximately 120 days, and the module matrix we use is approximately 5 meter by 126. So there, basically from one part to another part, it's 10 meter in the distance. And the farm area is 3.4 acres. And as an average, if we are talking about per megawatt per acre, the land will come around 1.35 acre per megawatt we used. And we have an open space in this farm is approximately 10%. So especially we designed this farm in the form of the poly houses for doing like agrivoltaics practices like vegetable, fruits and all. This is the second farm which is already commissioned now. It is again 2.5 megawatt peak, and the modules we are using over here bifacial, and inverters is again furnace. It's again hot dip structure, and it's on the 4 meter of the height, same place nearby to the existing farm. And we start construction in this year 2023 in January, and we commissioned it by just last week, and the completion time is 110 days. And the module matrix over here is 4 by 227 because it's a rectangular land. But the span of the modules is again 10 meter. Previously the module size is 2 meter, now it is somewhere around 2.2 meter, and we keep the walkways in between in it. And the farm area is 4 acres, and open space is 22%. Previously we basically constructed the farm for the purpose of the vegetable and leafy cropping underneath of it. And this farm we are just designing with the mind that we are going to grow millet crops underneath of it. Now, what are the key points focus while we are designing an agrivoltaic farm? One is the site selection. These all things is as per my team and my personal experiences I am sharing with you. Another is the design and installation. Then the crop selection, because you can't do each and every crop underneath of the solar panels. Maintenance, legal and regulatory compliance. If we are talking about the site selection, the selection of the site for agrivoltaics should be based on several factors such as availability of sunlight, soil, fertility, topology, water resources, and electricity network augmentation. That is a very big point, because at any point of any place, if we are going to design a solar power plant, we must secure where the electricity is going to go and who is the off-taker of the electricity, because the electricity is going to play a major role in terms of the revenue model. It is also important to consider the type of the crops that can be grown in the area and the market demand for those crops. Then design and installation. The design and installation of the AgriPV plant system should be done in the way that does not negatively impact crop growth or yield. The panel should be installed at a height that allows for the passage of light and air to the crop and should be spaced in the way that does not create too much shade. Crop selection. The selection of the crop for agrivoltaics should be done based on the amount of sunlight that the area receives, as well as the type of the soil and the water resources available. The crop should be chosen in a way that maximizes their productivity while also benefiting from the shade provided by the solar panels. Now the maintenance, that's a key aspect. The maintenance of the agrivoltaic system should be done in a way that does not damage the crop or the solar panels. This includes regular cleaning of solar panels, pruning of crops, and monitoring of soil fertility and water resources. Now, last one is the legal and regulatory compliance. Agrivoltaic system may require compliances with certain regulation and permits. Depending upon the location, size of the system, it is also important to research and comply with this regulation to ensure the legality and safety of the system. At the end of the day, there is a huge investment involved in the agrivoltaic farms. Now question comes, why agrivoltaics? With this agrivoltaics, as of our experience, we are very easily do shade tolerant plants underneath of agrivoltaics. Horticulture practices like floricultures and fruit and flowers, we are easily able to do. We are already doing dairy farming underneath of this plant because we are trying to make a multi-model farming underneath of this plant. Then hydroponics, we are coming up with the hydroponics in the agrivoltaics. Now the question comes, agriculture land without crop is not a land at all. That is a question of the sustainability. If we convert the land from where we are getting millet crops and the rice, paddy and all, and we convert into the AgriPV form, so from where the crop is going on. So we are very tactfully, carefully deal with the cropping concept of AgriPV plant. What we have grown in last 2 years, that these are the crops like leafy vegetables, spinach, ladyfinger, potatoes, tomatoes. We already grown, and it is proven now in our farm, we are able to grow this sort of the vegetables underneath of the solar panels. Before that, all this type of the vegetables were not able to grown by the existing farmers. Now due to the shade and due to the less water evaporation and less temperature underneath of the solar panels, we are able to grow all this sort of the vegetables. Now question come, it is a viable solution. Agrivoltaics comes with promising future, which hit 2 birds with 1 stone, helping our food supply and transition us to a cleaner energy. Extra protection from extra harmful sunlight improve the health of the soil and increase the level of nutrients, creating important ecosystem. It also protect crop from birds and bats. Now it also help in reduction of global warming. Agrivoltaic test field and open field have temperature difference of approximately 10 degrees Celsius on hot summer day. It reduces the evaporation by 50%. It reduces evaporation, it keeps cooling underneath of the solar panel, keeps solar panel cooler to perform better results. And we got 12% high production than any sort of the rooftop or industrial installation with the same inverters and same panels. So just based on, it seems agrivoltaics is a winning strategy. Now come to the challenges. This is one of the major challenges we faced during our first installation, that is the cleaning of the solar panels. So we made proper walkways, and we are not able to use the robotic system underneath of it because the span of the panel is 5 into X matrix is it. So the span of the panel is 10 meters. So still the robotic system available is around 4 meters or maximum 6 meters. We are trying to develop with some of the vendors to maintain a robotic system for our existing plant. Now, these are the real challenge. If somebody want to come up and they said, okay, I want to go and establish a agrivoltaic farm. So first question comes to the investment. So there is no one in the market who is going to finance your agrivoltaic farm. If some bank is going to be financed, they are going to be financed on your personal work or mortgage your X properties. So there is no government scheme. Nothing is till now with the government banks or by any of the ministry. So there is no specific scheme in which we are going to get the finance for the agrivoltaic farm in India as of now. Uncertain return on investment, because what happens when we are going to put the agrivoltaic farm, so whatever the existing crop we are getting out from that space, that area, we are not able to grow it. We'll grow some of the shaded crops. It depends which sort of the design we are opting for the agrivoltaics. So there is an uncertain return in terms of the agriculture produces. Then there is no rules and regulation for agrivoltaics in India. Still now, like in Italy and France, there are specific rules and regulation for designing and put up an agrivoltaic farm. But in India, like I put 2 agrivoltaic farm of 2.5 megawatt. At one place I have a 10% open space and the another space I have a 22% open space. Although that is my research model, we are doing research underneath of it, but there is no specific rules and regulation by any of the state government or the central government for setting up a agriculture plant. There is now the fourth one is the direct competition with millet crops, not with the farmer income. Let's show the farmer to whom we took this land, previously they were earning 30,000 per acre per year. Now they are earning 88,000 per acre per year. So there is no direct competition with the income of the farmer. But yes, we are not able to grow like paddy, wheat, maize underneath of the solar panels. Now uncertain cross subsidy and wheeling charges for power. As you know, in the agrivoltaic farm we are going to put the solar panel and we are generating electricity. So in different states have different policies. We are blessed that my farms is in Delhi, so there is average power procurement cost applies on it. So I am getting somewhere around 5 rupees per unit at the end of the year. That is my revenue income for the solar panels. But then in the state like AP, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, there is no surety about it. And if we are going to generate the power with respect to the solar, they will calculate it as an open access power. So we have to pay, depending upon the state to state, cross subsidy charges, wheeling charges for the power. So these are the challenges in India as of now, today, if we are going to establish or design or develop a agri-PV plant by our own. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahuja, for that wonderful presentation. The last presentation is by Mr. Balaji of RenCube from Bangalore.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Balaji Bangole, founder and CEO at RenCube. So they talked a lot about challenges. I'm going to talk a bit about the solutions that we have. So we have a new innovative type of solar panel which addresses some of the concerns Mr. Ahuja had, Ms. Sonali said. So the new type of solar panels, we can do 100% agriculture and 100% use the land for solar energy generation, right? We can talk about it. So how is that we are able to do 100% solar? We have a new type of design that enables agriculture to happen underneath. But more importantly, we also use the land that the sunlight, some of it we use it for increasing the solar energy generation, and the sunlight that we don't need, we send it down to the ground to increase the energy generation of the or help agriculture happen underneath the solar panels. So this is what I mean, right? So today, right, what they talked about, right, Mr. Ahuja talked about we cannot do wheat, we cannot do rice. So why is that? Is because, right, the panels create a shade and we cannot grow anything underneath. And that's been the problem. So the new type of panels, right, we almost get about 40% of PAR underneath so that we can grow any type of crop. And that's been the challenge that we have taken upon. With agrivoltaics, with our technology, what we are saying or claiming is that we will be able to grow any type of crop irrespective of the location, the season, and also provides the added benefits of what other panelists talked about earlier. Now, yes, this was a slide we presented about a couple of years ago to the Telangana University, and I'll come back to that later. So we inaugurated a 10 kilowatt pilot system, a small system to see how it would work out, and what we are claiming in slides is it working out in reality. So the PJTSU University from Telangana, Dr. Avil sir is here, Dr. Abdul Latif is here. They are the principal scientists who helped with the crop installations. We did the RenCube panel part, and these are the some of the crops that we did in the first season. This is from October to January: carrot, cabbage, beans, groundnut, and broccoli. Even though we wanted to do rice, wheat, and other things, we would subsequently do it in the Kharif season or in the subsequent researches, right? So what is a picture that we wanted to just give a glimpse of what we mean by that, right? How is that we are able to make 100% of the land available for agriculture and also make solar energy? First of all, the height needs to be increased. There is no doubt in it, because you need to have mechanized farming to happen, and for mechanized farming to happen, the tractors needs to go in and you need to raise a height. The second thing is you need to give enough gaps so that, right, you get at least 30-40% of sunlight underneath. So 100% of the crops. Here is a live example. You can see at the bottom where we are able to see complete row, all rows of being lit up with the controlled area and the non-controlled area. And in respect to the unit economics that people were talking about, right, what we are saying is that with this model, and the farmer leasing his land to the solar developer, he can continue to make about 28,000 to 30,000 rupees per annum per acre, right? So that what happens is solar becomes a third crop for the farmer. Then we can solve some of these issues with respect to land, with respect to policies, ownership, right? The farmer should be able to continue to make this land available for solar for 25 years, 30 years in a leased model, and he continues to get an income of 25,000 to 40,000 rupees, right? Irrespective of what happens in the monsoon failure should not impact the farmer, or any other crop failure should not, without impact, he should continue to get 30 or 40,000 rupees as an additional income. Then he would be more than happy to lease the land for the solar developers. And the solar developers' advantage is they get land, and then they don't have to pay for the, right, the cost of the land upfront, but they can lease it on an annual basis. Then this is a type of panel that we have newly designed. You can see the gaps. It could be east-west or north-south. so that we get a uniform PAR throughout the year, throughout the seasons. All other benefits that our other panelists talked about, right, in terms of protection from the hot sun or the water evaporation, all of this is available. But only thing that we have designed here is that provide additional sunlight to come underneath the land, and hence, right, you should be able to do 100% agriculture and 100% solar at the same land. So here are some of the, this is a brief that I wanted to leave it off with, but here are some more pictures that you can see in terms of how it has evolved in the last season. With that, I'll open it back to Sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balaji, for that very innovative in technology and with their R&D and all that. Now I would like to open the floor for questions, maybe 3 or 4 questions. We are running out of time. So I would request any of you to raise your hand, introduce yourself, and pose your questions to the experts. I mean, here is your opportunity. No questions?
Check, check. Any questions on agrivoltaics? Our speakers can be contacted offline as well. We'll
Yeah,
share the
that's-
details. One second, hold on.
Sir, I'm Srinivas Kasula from Arka Brainstack Private Limited. When you said that the crops can be grown below the solar panel, so I just was curious about what are the list of the crops which can be grown, or what are the, best suit for that kind of environment where the sunlight would be bare minimum.
So, I mean, it again depends. I mean, so that design has to be done, so it will depend on how much distance you have between rows of panels. So how much light are you allowing to go to the ground? And then, what percentage would be diffuse versus normal? And then different crops have different requirements. Now, like all grain crops and all have very high light requirements, so you kind of rule them out. So so at a high level, you can say horticulture crops, so most vegetables. Within that, like if you do all these green leafy vegetables, they require the least amount of light. And then you could do flowers. There are enough flowers that require lesser amount of light. So that's, yeah, at a high level. Yeah.
Just to add to that, right? So that's what is happening today. But what we are researching towards, working towards, is that we will be able to do any crop under the agri-photovoltaic. We just have to figure out what kind of light is required, how much gap needs to be given. That's a work in progress, but eventually we will be able to say rice, wheat, and cash crops can be grown under agri. Only then it becomes what you call a large-scale sustainable adoption that can happen, and we are working towards it. We are not there yet, but we will definitely get there shortly.
Could you let us know which all states this thing has been deployed in?
We've just started. If you're talking about our panels, we just started. Telangana University, PJTSU is the first one to have done this, and it's a very small pilot of 10 kilowatt. But yeah, we are talking to several folks now, but we've just started.
But agrivoltaics has been deployed in India for a while now, right? Vivek, if you could just throw some light.
Yeah, so there are projects across India, actually pilot projects, you can call them. So Gujarat, Maharashtra, Kerala, Rajasthan, Delhi, yeah, and there'll be more, right? I mean, UP. So there are a lot of projects now, but they're all like kind of very small research pilot projects. So as such, on a commercial scale, it's not really started. I mean, I would say Surindarji is the only one who's probably doing it on a commercial viability right now in Delhi. Yeah.
So if we're talking about commercially viability, so we are using the cash-rich crops underneath of solar panels, like capsicum, lettuce, mint, coriander, which are high in demand in summers. So whatever the income we are getting from the land or for the cropping, by doing the cropping of this sort of the cash-rich crops.
Thanks, Surindar. So basically it's not viable for the hilly areas if we talk about, because we do have tomatoes. And I come from Himachal, so there's tomato over there, there are a couple of other, peas is there. So I think it could be deployed there as well, but then we'll have to see the viability, if you say, is it? Or the terrain.
We have to see both the concept, terrain as well, viability as well. Even I visited one of the AgriPV farm in Europe. So they are using, they are putting up the solar panels by protecting the apple orchards and all the things. So it depends upon the area, it depends upon the atmosphere, like so. But then one thing is sure, by putting the AgriPV, we are able to grow the cropping like we are doing in the poly houses and the greenhouses.
So I'll just add to his point about agro PV being implemented in hilly areas or not. So we recently worked with the Uttarakhand solar state policy. We were drafting it, and we have mentioned agro PV as a subsection with a very small target. The idea is to involve KVKs, to have demonstration projects so that the farmers do get involved and there is more awareness. But that's how we are starting with. But we do see even in a place like Uttarakhand, we do want to have agro PV, and the state is interested in installing these projects. Yeah.
So there are subsidies which government is thinking of or the state is thinking of for the
Yes,
farmers.
yes. The subsidies are also higher in the hilly terrain, so that's a plus. But as you said, there are challenges as well in the hilly terrains because they have already a smaller amount of land they're using for food. So you have those hilly areas. So how you implement APV in a hilly area where there is, let's say, no infrastructure for power evacuation. Those are the challenges that we are talking about. But there is, I mean, we are already starting to work towards it via policy.
So you need a lot of T&D as well then, transmission, distribution, from that side, yeah?
Yes, of course. But to have that on a big scale, first we need to demonstrate in a smaller pockets in the plain areas, and then we'll move to hilly areas.
Thanks, Sonali.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Any other questions from the audience, please? As said, our speakers would be available on the floor, and so the questions could come up a little later as well.
Amit, there are two professors from Telangana Agriculture University. Maybe they can also throw some light on what the experiments have been. Yeah.
Probably, if you could just share a little snippet.
Yeah, good afternoon to all. The basic question is that designing part. So in that, how to get the more solar energy to the plants to meet the photosynthetically active radiation, that is one thing. The designing part, we are interested in more how to design the solar panels when erecting this. So that is one concern we are dealing with. And second thing is the cost. So to success of the this agri-photovoltaic system depends on the cost of the panels, how to reduce the cost of the panels. These two aspects worrying the, we can say these are the constraints for promoting the agri-photovoltaics. So since we are convinced with the economics and environmental benefit, then only we started this research program at our university. So this, thank you. So if anybody can answer to reduce the cost of the solar panels, that will be happy.
Sir, as we already discussed, right, so we are one of the companies working on reducing the cost of energy. Today it is about 40-45 rupees per watt peak, and we do hope it will reduce down the line. But there's several other technological advances that are happening within the solar panel itself, and in the next 2-3 years you would see a substantial reduction that would help. Either the electricity prices have to go up or the panel prices have to come down. So one of these things will happen in the next 2-3 years. Then we hope Agrivoltaics will be a huge success, because there is no other alternative, right? There is no other land. So this has to happen, and it will. We are working towards it, and hopefully the breakthroughs will come, and we will get to that point very soon.
If we are talking about reducing the cost of solar modules, it is because it is a open market. So we can't quote on the price reducing and all, but then we are working towards the increasing the income of farmer and from the agrivoltaic farms, right? By putting different sort of the cropping so that we are able to balance the equation and we can utilize the same land for generating of the power as well as the crop. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and since we have a minute and a half, I just want to, because we're talking about viability here and costs. So let me, give some numbers. So let's say a normal ground mount solar project is 4 crores. And if you do a AgriPV project at 4-meter elevation, let's say it costs 5.25 crores. Now, how, so what have, who bears this extra cost, right? So now the present value of say 20 years of agriculture income needs to compensate for this extra cost of the project, right? Assuming your solar tariff is the same. So if you're not getting any subsidy, then you need to make enough money from agriculture that compensates for this additional capital cost. And that's the key of doing it, right? So technical feasibility will be there for any crop. You can create a system, design a system that any crop can be grown. But then is it commercially feasible? How much money did you spend doing that? And what is the income from that crop? So if you're going to grow wheat and paddy, in my view, it's never going to work because they're very low value crops. So you need to have higher value crops to get that income that justifies this capital expenditure.
Hello, this is Dr. Muhammad Latif Pasha. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my question is to Parveen, Arora and Suruchi regarding legal documentation. Till now, has any state formed full modalities regarding legal issues?
So, like I mentioned, Maharashtra talks about, in their solar policy, they talk about solar panels installed by farmer-producer organization and self-help groups. It is limited to only those organizations and selected groups. And there are still some conditions like you have to install it 4 meters above the ground. So it does talk about this, does not state it as AgriPV per se, but it impliedly talks about AgriPV because it says that farmers can install solar panels on their land subject to it being installed 4 meters above the ground. Plus, it is restricted to only these cooperative helping societies, self-help groups, and farmer-producer organizations. Karnataka, unfortunately, no. It did provide it in the earlier policy, but then it was taken away in the current policy, which is applicable. I hope it answers. Yes.
And Delhi also came out with a policy which was to enhance income of farmers, but that didn't take off. 1 or 2 projects government put at their own, but otherwise it did not take off for the last 5 years. So policies are still in making, and documentation will also be known once policies are promulgated.
So any more questions from the audience in the hall? Go ahead.
Hi. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Very quick question. So you've been using agricultural lands for this purpose, but I'd like to ask a very simple question. If we can use barren lands, use hydroponics, and also use solar PV, and convert the entire non-agricultural land into cultivation potential, and make entire ecosystem feasible for both the prospects. I think that would be a great idea as well. But then I want to let you know that why haven't you tried that part yet? Because India does have non-agricultural land in ample as well. So that's a good option to consider. So my question is, why not? Thank you. Thank
One of the panelists would like to take
Yeah. I guess it depends really where your barren land is. So if you're going to do hydroponics and all and bear all the costs of doing that, then you better be very near a urban center. And then it can be viable. So the question is there barren land near urban centers? If yes, then I guess what you're saying is possible.
Are there any more questions? Anybody else? Okay. I'll just give a brief background why we as Indo-German Energy Forum are quite excited about this innovative topic or niche topic of agri-PV. Germany has embarked on a new journey of converting their, the power system to the energy transition or Energiewende as they call it as. They have put up a very ambitious target of having close to about 100 gigawatt of agri-PV in the next 5 years, and I hope that they will try and achieve that. And we as one of the developing economies, we really need to seriously contemplate and think about how to really multiply these kinds of innovative technologies. It's against that background, as I said in the beginning, as IGEF, we have expert Mr. Rahul who is sitting here. Rahul, you can just introduce yourself. What we have done, what Mr. Vivek spoke about, the pilot, the module that was showcased over here, the video. That's the pilot that we have implemented, which is fully operational. If there are any questions on operational parameters, economics, financing, please get back to us. This is a developing topic, and we will be very happy to take your questions, queries, comments, concerns on land issues, on regulatory issues. Since this is evolving, we have been talking to a range of stakeholders. In fact, through the efforts of IGEF, we have been successful in helping MNRE to constitute a task force on agri-photovoltaics. So they are quite serious. The ministry itself is quite serious about the topic. There are these national programs of KUSUM and other solar-related programs which are operational, which are linked to agri-photovoltaics to a great extent. So any of you who is interested in learning more about how these pilots are working, in fact, we do organize study tours from time to time. We do take stakeholders from different domains and make them visit these, try and understand what the challenges are on the energy front, on the agriculture front, on the horticulture front. That's why we try and get these very distinguished experts to share their experiences and knowledge. I think mic is required.
Sir, I come from state of Maharashtra, and I am very much connected with the agriculture and the villages in Maharashtra. In fact, in my native, I tried to promote the photovoltaic technology in agriculture, but there are many challenges which are faced. Basically, first is the economics. Our agriculture sector is still not that rich to afford this much of cost of product of photovoltaic. So solarization is very difficult at the cost of their own. So that is one area where we are struggling. Second area, what is the problem, is the land availability near to the substations. Many projects are interested in developing the projects very close to the substation, but the lands are not always available there. So I am facing particularly in person, in many ways, these two areas, the challenges. So if you have any solution to that, we will be very much interested to work with you.
I think there are these developers who have developed the pilots. I would rather leave it to both of them, Mr. Vivek and SunMaster Ahuja.
Hello. Your question is absolutely right. And we, as a developer, also face a lot of problem from the DISCOM side, distribution companies side for the power evacuation. Presently, we all are talking from the different agriculture universities at different places about the agriculture crops and all these things underneath of the solar panels. But the main focus of entire investment and everything is depending upon the power evacuation from the solar power plant. Still, last week I had a personal meeting with the Joint Secretary MNRE, where we discussed all these issues with them, and hopefully very shortly, as MNRE is coming up with a policy in which they will instruct to DISCOMs to help out the agri-PV plants for the power evacuation under the Kusum Yojana or as well as for last mile connectivity program from MNRE, grid connectivity program from MNRE. As of now, we request them the cost part for power evacuation will be in the DISCOM scope. We request them to just promote the agri-PV in India.
Yeah, I mean, see, for small projects, this evacuation is an issue, right? So you have to be close to the substation, or the government is subsidizing it, right? So eventually then, one thing is about the overall economics, right? And if you're far from the substation and you want to do a small project, economics is a problem. Now, next comes the business model, right? So economics is a problem, but the government can say, I'll subsidize it, I'll take a hit, but then I want to promote it because of XYZ reasons. So there's no simple answer. I mean, this is a genuine issue. And, and farmer not having money, yes. I mean, so the farmer can give his land, he can give his labor. I mean, that's what he can do, right? And there are policies which will help, developers can come in, take the land. So, that's the way the farmer can get involved in it.
What is present economics like up to what kilometer from substation you can suggest? Because everybody want within 1 kilometer, how the land can be available within 1 kilometer or very close to the substation?
Right. I mean, it depends on what tariff is being offered for the power. But see, right now, the Kusum scheme, which is the only way kind of to do these projects, nothing is viable with that tariff right now, right? Even 1 kilometer is not viable. I mean, without any evacuation costs, it's not viable, right? So at that tariff. So there is no, as such, answer to that what is, what kilometer is viable.
So what is happening? The knowledge has reached to the villages. Like we people, all Indians, come from some or other way connected to the villages. I promoted photovoltaic in my own native, but now I don't have a face to show them because of all these problems. So there is a need of a lot of policy support and the investors who can help actually the industry. So the German collaboration can help us in that direction or something like that, and build the policy.
I think that brings us to the end of this wonderful session. A big round of applause to our very distinguished speakers, please. You want to hand over the mementos?
I would like to thank IGF and GIZ for supporting this forum. I would also like to thank our moderator, Anil Belluri ji, for setting up such a tone. Thank you so much for the panelists. I would like to call upon the chairman of Indian Biogas Association, Mr. Gaurav Kedia, to hand over the tokens to our panelists and the moderator. Gaurav Kedia, please. Mr. Anil Kumar Belluri. Let's start with the moderator. Sir. A round of applause for the moderator, please. Thank you. Mr. Parveen Arora. Ms. Suruchi. Mr. Vivek Saraf. Mr. Surindar Ahuja. Ms. Sonali. Mr. P. Balaji. May I also call upon stage Ms. Bhaduri and Mr. Rahul to join us for a group photograph. Without their support, the session could not have happened. Thank you so much for such a lovely panel.